very much, Mr. Shwarma, for that address. And of course, as you talk about AI, we're also counting down to the India AI Summit, the AI Impact Summit that is taking place next week. And of course, it'll be interesting to see policymakers in action. They will, of course, be speaking about the diverse aspects related to AI. But let's now shift our focus, Amita, to geopolitics, because the next session that we're going to have is essentially on the India-EU partnership, especially even as the world is in a turmoil. What are the European perspectives on how they really see this partnership coming along?
Absolutely, as the global order is going through a lot of recalibration. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together in welcoming on stage His Excellency Charles Michel, who is the former Prime Minister of Belgium and President Emeritus of the European Council. Good evening, sir.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, today we face a paradox. The world is more multipolar than ever, and yet multilateralism is weaker than ever. Old powers are struggling, new powers are emerging, and global balances are being withdrawn. The multilateral system built on the ashes of two world wars is every day under attack. Unilateral actions, economic coercion, intimidations are becoming the new normal. I would like to take a few minutes with you today to share my European perspective. In my opinion, we have to take into account 5 major factors which are reshaping the new world reality. First one, the fierce race between China and the United States. Second, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. Third, the increased competition in new battlefields. Fourth, the rise of mid-sized powers. And fifth, the irrelevance of the United Nations. There is a fierce competition, even rivalry, between China and the United States. We can see China's ambition rise, assertiveness. On the other hand, America first is put in practice like never before. The second topic I want to mention is the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. The full-scale invasion of Ukraine is a blatant violation of international law by a permanent member of the Security Council in possession of the nuclear weapon. That's not a detail, that's a global threat, and we have to take into account the fact that behind this war there are many other conflicts all across the globe. In particular, we have seen in 2025 a historic rise, reaching the highest number of military conflicts since World War II. As we speak, 59 state-based conflicts are tearing the world apart. More than 1 country in 3 are involved in conflicts outside of their borders. And the third point is the competition, which is intensifying in new battlefields. We are entering in a new era of competition, driven by new resources that will define the future. Big data, artificial intelligence have become twin engines of power and tools of domination. And the power of data, when combined with AI, may soon surpass that of oil at a point where I suppose we may even see the rise of an OPEC of data. Because who controls technologies and resources, natural or digital, will shape the rules, the wealth, and the security of tomorrow. The digital ecosystem itself, in my opinion, must build on trust. It should be secure, sustainable, and human-centric. Space. Space is another new arena for competition. It's a lawless zone, and is the object of ambition, strategy, and new technological developments. The military field, the nuclear arms race is back. That's not all. A new battle is underway for generative AI, for advanced ballistic missiles, for cyber and space dominance. Every region of the world has its troublemaker. We can see North Korea in the Indo-Pacific region, Iran in the Middle East, or Russia in Europe. They resort to nuclear threats in an attempt to grant themselves a license to kill and to fit themselves their own rules. The fourth point is a very interesting one. We are witnessing the rise of middle powers, countries that assert their autonomy and promote their interests. These nations are swing states of global politics, and their rise is at the heart of multilateralism. They shape alliances and refuse to simply follow the footsteps of a single great power. Ladies and gentlemen, those tectonic shifts also lead to a reconfiguration of global coalition. Let's take the example of G7 and BRICS. On the one hand, the G7 countries, despite some impact following America First policy within the G7, try to rally some support and try to have with them like-minded partners. Meanwhile, the BRICS, as a part of G7 in terms of global GDP, they expand their reach, they advocate for more international inclusivity and for alternative financial mechanisms. These interactions are fascinating, and it shows that nothing is written in stone. We cannot change the past, but we can change the future. And in this context, it is promising to see the EU, a G7 member, together with India, chair of the BRICS countries, they conclude a free trade agreement. It shows there is no fatality. It shows our common refusal to be instrumentalized and to be trapped in a pointless confrontation. Finally, the fifth point, which could be a consequence of the previous one, the irrelevance of the United Nations. One said the United Nations was not created to take mankind to heaven, but to save humanity from hell. Peace and security are not optional, they are essential. But today, the Security Council is paralyzed by a veto power. It has become what I'm calling a walking dead, the Security Council, incapable of preventing or resolving crises. The veto right is a responsibility, is not a privilege. Mistrust is growing, and we can see the West suspecting the UN to be closer to the expectations of the so-called Global South, at the same time, the so-called Global South criticizing the UN for being too close of a practice of double standards that is supposed to be in the side of the developed countries. We need urgent reform, and I know that some will say that's not realistic, but I would like to quote Nelson Mandela: that's unrealistic to reform the UN until it is not. Ladies and gentlemen, the existing world is over, the new one is not yet born, and today again, two contrasting worldviews are in competition. On one side, a unilateral and protectionist, even imperialist vision, where a good deal necessarily has a winner and a loser. And on the other hand, a cooperative vision, where a good deal is a win-win deal, in other terms, the rule of law against the law of force. Ladies, gentlemen, friends, strong partners make strong partnerships. India's dynamic demography, thriving markets, technological capabilities are solid and valuable assets. On the other hand, the EU is a unique project in history, and our political and economic integration has delivered a lot in terms of prosperity and freedom over the last decade. However, we currently face huge challenges, and we have our homework. We are working on the EU side to develop our strategic autonomy, our sovereignty based on a better regulation, more investments. We have to use the full potential of the European Investment Bank and of our capital markets. We have also to diversify our partnerships with the rest of the world. And here, this trade agreement between EU and India is paramount. That's a game changer. The EU and India, we are making history because we are showing to the rest of the world that we can coordinate, we can cooperate together, we can trust each other. And this agreement is offering a lot in terms of vast potential for the future. Why? Because that's not only about commerce, that's more than that. that's about connectivity, that's about making sure that our people will get closer, our students, our researchers, and it's also making sure that in the future we will work together in the field of defense, in the field of security, to protect the maritime security and to work together to counter some hybrid threats and hybrid attacks. Ladies and gentlemen, and I conclude here, we are in a moment where we have to ask ourselves a few questions. What do we want to achieve together as one human community? How do we decide together? And how do we fund our projects together? We want a better world, more stable, more prosperous, more inclusive, and it's captured very well the G20 slogan of Prime Minister Modi, one Earth, one family, and one future. And to get there, we must return to the fundamentals, an international order built on clear principles anchored in the UN Charter, no double standards, enforcement, and a deep reform of the UN Security Council. Ladies and gentlemen, world history is filled with tragedies, injustices, and human sufferings. We are not condemned to repeat the past. Experience shows that visionary men and women, when they act together, when they trust each other, they are able to reverse the course of history, and they are able to build a better future for their community, for their nation, and for the world. And in fact, we just have to ask ourselves what's fair and what's right. More coordination, more solidarity, more consistency, more respect, more ambition, more inclusivity. In one word, more collective intelligence. India and the EU, we are showing the path, we are acting, we are making history, we have financial capabilities, we have talents, we have technologies like never before. Let's use them in a proper and smart way. Let's build a better, a fairer world with more happiness, with more hope, more opportunities for all of us. I thank you.